In Vietnam, a chemistry mistake once rejected for ruining laboratory equipment was turned into a sterile spray that could stop otherwise fatal bleeding long enough to get a wounded soldier to surgery. The story of superglue begins at a dead end. In 1942, research chemist Dr. Harry Coover was trying to create an optically clear plastic for Allied military gun sights. The material he tested was a family of chemicals called cyanoacrylates. On paper, the goal was practical and urgent, a clear material for wartime optics. In practice, the compound behaved like a saboteur inside the lab. Moisture made it permanently bond to almost everything it touched. Instead of becoming a useful plastic, it stuck to tools, surfaces, and equipment. For that reason, Coover rejected it. That low point matters, because the invention did not begin as a triumph. It began as a material so troublesome, it was pushed aside. The very property that would later make cyanoacrylate famous was the reason it was dismissed. It was too adhesive, too fast, too uncontrollable for the job at hand. In one context, that meant failure. But if a material is rejected for doing one thing too well, what else might it be able to do? The answer would take years to surface. And when it did, it would come from another expensive accident. Part 1, 9 years later. In 1951, Harry Coover returned to cyanoacrylates without setting out to do so. He had been transferred to a chemical plant in Tennessee, where he headed a team researching heat-resistant polymers for jet airplane canopies. The setting had changed from wartime gun sights to the demands of newer aircraft, but the broader pattern was the same. Difficult military technology was pushing chemists toward unfamiliar materials. Then came the moment that turned a forgotten nuisance into a revelation. Another chemist on the team, Fred Joyner, used what was known as the 9/10 compound between the prisms of a refractometer. The result was disaster for the instrument. The prisms became permanently glued together, destroying an expensive refractometer. That sounds like another failure, and in the narrow sense, it was. A valuable instrument was lost. Work was interrupted, but this time, the mistake was read differently. Coover recognized what the ruined refractometer was really demonstrating. Here was an adhesive that bonded without heat or pressure. The problem that had once disqualified the material was now the breakthrough. So the question changed, no longer, why does this compound ruin the job? Part 2, the bond becomes a product. Now it became, what job is this compound uniquely suited to do? Once Coover understood what cyanoacrylates could be, the path shifted from discovery to ownership and use. He acquired patent number 2668-109 for the adhesive. In 1958, it began to be sold commercially under the brand name Eastman 910. That moment is easy to summarize and easy to underestimate. A rejected chemistry problem had become a marketable adhesive in just over a decade. The same tendency to bond rapidly in the presence of moisture was no longer merely a laboratory annoyance. It was now the basis of a product. The name Eastman 910 also tells us something about invention itself. This was not a lone spark detached from institutions, nor a mythic single instant. It moved through research teams, industrial development, patenting, and branding. Harry Coover stands at the center of the story in the verified record, but Fred Joyner's destroyed refractometer was the decisive demonstration that pushed the insight into focus. The invention was accidental in one sense, but it was also recognized, interpreted, and developed by people working inside organized research. Still, commercial success is only one arc of this material's history. The stranger chapter was still ahead. How does an adhesive sold as a product become something used around living tissue, where the wrong chemistry? Part 3, not all superglues are the same. can do real harm. Before the wartime medical story, there is an important distinction. Household superglues and medical tissue adhesives are not the same thing. Short-chain household cyanoacrylates, including formulations such as methyl-2-cyanoacrylate, are toxic to living tissue. They release heat and break down products such as formaldehyde, and that can damage tissue. This detail matters because the popular legend often collapses everything into one simple sentence. Superglue was used in surgery. The verified record is more precise. The cyanoacrylate chemistry that became famous as household superglue is part of a broader family, and different members of that family behave differently in the body. The military did not simply take off-the-shelf household glue and start using it on wounds. Instead, longer chain varieties were used because they degraded more slowly and avoided severe inflammation. That difference is the boundary between a dramatic medical use and a dangerous misconception. The history is impressive enough without blurring the chemistry. And once that distinction was understood, cyanoacrylate moved into one of the most extreme settings imaginable. Part 4: Vietnam and the Impossible Wound. Battlefield medicine, where a few seconds could mean the difference between reaching surgery and dying before it began. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. military developed a sterile aerosol cyanoacrylate spray propelled by Freon for medics who needed rapid hemorrhage control on the battlefield. This was not a general cure and not a substitute for surgery. It was a battlefield measure for catastrophic bleeding when there was no time to lose. The reported use was stark. Field surgeons temporarily clamped untreatable massive internal wounds, dried the area, and applied the adhesive directly to ruptured organs such as the liver or kidney. The effect described in the source is immediate in purpose: to halt fatal bleeding. The goal was to keep the patient alive long enough to undergo conventional surgery. That is the astonishing reversal at the center of this story. A material discarded because it stuck to everything had become valuable precisely because it could act fast when contact and speed mattered most. In the laboratory, that trait destroyed instruments. In war, modified and sterilized, it became a way to buy time against hemorrhage. But this is also where the story has to be told carefully. The spray was part of a specific military development, used in a specific medical context, with specific chemistry and handling. It was not a universal miracle, and it was not ordinary consumer glue poured onto wounds. The difference is not a footnote. Part 5: From Nuisance to Lifeline. It is the whole point. Seen as a whole, the invention of superglue is not just a tale of accident. It is a tale of reclassification. In 1942, cyanoacrylate was rejected because its strongest property made it unusable for the intended task. In 1951, after Fred Joyner permanently glued together the prisms of a refractometer with the 9/10 compound, Harry Coover recognized that same property as the basis for an adhesive unlike conventional ones that needed heat or pressure. In 1958, the material entered the market as Eastman 910 under patent 2668-109. And in Vietnam, a longer chain cyanoacrylate in sterile aerosol form was developed for medics confronting catastrophic hemorrhage. Each stage is connected by the same chemical behavior, but each stage asks a different question. Is this clear enough for optics? No. Is this bond strong and immediate enough to be useful as an adhesive? Yes. Can a modified form buy time in battlefield trauma care? In some cases, yes. That sequence also explains why the invention feels so dramatic. The low point was not separate from the success. The low point contained it. The thing that made the material fail in one role was the thing that made it transformative in another. And that raises the final question. When people remember superglue today, what exactly should they remember? An office drawer adhesive, a patented industrial product, or a material that once crossed into emergency medicine under the pressure of war? Part 6, what the story really says. The most durable version of this story is the most exact one. Harry Coover's work in 1942 did not produce the clear plastic he wanted for Allied gun sights, because cyanoacrylates bonded too aggressively in the presence of moisture. In 1951, while leading research on heat-resistant polymers for jet canopies in Tennessee, he encountered the chemistry again. Fred Joyner's accidental destruction of an expensive refractometer by gluing its prisms together with the 9/10 compound became the decisive proof that the material was not a failed plastic, but an extraordinary adhesive. Coover later obtained patent 2007-68-109, and Eastman 910 went on sale in 1958. Then, in one of the most striking turns in the history of modern materials, cyanoacrylate chemistry was adapted by the U.S. military during the Vietnam War into a sterile aerosol spray for rapid hemorrhage control. Field surgeons used it on massive internal wounds after clamping and drying the area, applying it directly to ruptured organs such as the liver or kidney to halt otherwise fatal bleeding long enough to reach conventional surgery. Crucially, this was not the same as using household superglue on tissue. Short-chain versions are toxic to living tissue, while the longer-chain varieties, used for medical purposes, degraded more slowly and avoided severe inflammation. That is the invention in full. Not a myth of instant genius, and not a simple accident either. A discarded material, a ruined instrument, a patent, a product, and then a wartime medical application that gave the chemistry a second life, far beyond the laboratory. Sometimes an invention changes the world because someone gets exactly what they were trying to make. And sometimes it changes the world because they finally understand the value of what they almost threw away. If this story of war trauma or severe injury brought anything up for you, consider reaching out to local mental health or crisis support resources in your area.